the top. Seriously? Okay. Oh. Where is it all going? Oh. Please, please, please. Yes. Ah. Why is this happening? No!
It's 1278.
All right, let me get your, no, buddy, no, buddy, no, buddy.
Hey, honey, are you taking things for granted again?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, well, is there anything you can do about that? Because we really need to do some laundry.
Lord, will you please give me a more grateful heart? Buddy! My car! Okay.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thanksgiving. How many of you guys are thankful? Oh, that didn't sound convincing. I think you need to convince yourself that you are grateful about the things that you already have. Well, I just want to welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. I got the pleasure to have my father-in-law and my mother-in-law here. So let's give him a round of applause. He's been preaching for, 20, 30 years more. 40 years, 50 years, it's quite intimidating, all right? This rookie here trying to preach in front of them, all right? So, they're here with us today at our youth service. So, anyway, I am so excited to be able to bring the word to you tonight. We're talking about gratitude, all right? We're talking about the things that we sometimes take for granted. And Thanksgiving is a great opportunity to just stop and pause, right? To reflect on the things that we have that sometimes we just take for granted. I know this video is kind of funny here that you just saw, but the reality is that a lot of the times those things that you saw in the video, we don't really say thank you for that, right? We don't really care to say like, wow, we have these things. We have a washer, we have a dryer, we have hot water, we have electricity, we have whatever. So in our house, quick story. In these past days, we had some shortage on one of the plugs, and it just happened to be the plug where the internet comes in, and so we hadn't had internet for like 2 days, and my kids are going crazy because now they appreciate the fact that there is no internet in the house, right? And it's until like things like that get taken from you that you realize like, man, I didn't realize how much I missed. I would miss something that I didn't, wasn't thankful for. So Thanksgiving is a good opportunity to kind of just reflect on the goodness of God. So today, I don't necessarily want to talk about gratitude. I want to spin this Thanksgiving in the opposite direction, and I want to talk about complaining, because we do a lot of that. We don't do a lot of, we're not very grateful. We don't say thank you a lot, but man, we do a lot of complaining. And complaining is the opposite of gratitude. Let me tell you something, that as a young person, I was a complainer. Yeah, I was a complainer. When I was in junior high, I complained just about everything, because we didn't grow up with a lot. My parents weren't very well off. Both my parents worked jobs, and my dad worked a lot of hours, and anyway, tried to get us what we needed, but we were 5, and so what I got, being the third child in the family, was whatever my brother grew out of. So whatever he grew out of came to me, and I was like, yes, new clothes for me. And so that's what I had, right? But when I hit junior high and I started seeing what everybody was wearing, I started see that I didn't have any of that. I didn't have the latest Jordans, or I didn't have the latest clothes. I didn't have any of the new stuff. I didn't even know what cologne was, right? Because we didn't have that stuff at our house, It was I start joining sports, start seeing what other kids have. And that's where my complaining began, because I started comparing myself to what other kids had, and I didn't have it, and I started to complain, right? Because a lot of the times that's where complaining starts, in comparison, right? You go to social media and you see what other people have, and you start complaining because you don't have what they have, or you're not where they are, or if you're single, why am I not dating? If you're in a dating relationship, you're asking, why am I not married? And you're always one step, trying to be one step ahead, and that often produces complaining. We complain. And I was complaining in junior high. I complained about all these things. I remember it drove me one time in junior high. I wasn't a Christian, by the way, so just before I say this, I got to tell you that. But it drove me one time in junior high to take some kid's shoes. I mean, I was in football. He left them there by the locker room, and there were Jordan Air, the ones or something, retros. And I was never going to afford those shoes. And so I just, 5-finger discount. Y'all remember that. And so I took it. I got into a lot of trouble. They found out, and it was me. There was witnesses, and I never did that again. But it drove me to take somebody else's shoes. It drove me to take my brother's clothes, my older brother, because he started working. When he reached the age about 16, 17, he started working. So he'd bring brand new clothes with tags on it, and I'd take his clothes, and I'd wear it before him. Right? I just take the tags off, and I thought, I'm going to come back and put the tag right where it is. He's never going to know. Well, he knew, and it was me. I remember he bought this cologne, and I put 20 sprays, because I didn't know how many sprays you would put on, and kind of spent half his bottle, and just trying to get the things I didn't have. But I complained a lot, and I think a lot of you guys understand that, because we complain again when we don't have certain things. So I'm so glad for Thanksgiving because it allows us again to stop and reflect on all the good that is around us. We take for granted so many of these things. The fact that you woke up today and you have health and you have life and that you could stand up on your 2 feet, and the fact that you could grab a cup of coffee and you could taste it, the fact that you ate your food today and you could taste your food, the fact that you're sitting in comfortable chairs in an air-conditioned room with the freedom to worship God and sing songs unto Him, those are reasons to be thankful. But a lot of times we don't do that because it's an automatic. We live in an automatic world where everything we take for granted. And I want to take you today, and hopefully through our conversation, I want to take you to a point where you're grateful every day for everything you take for granted. Every single thing that you take for granted, I want to take you to that place. But we need to live every day like it's Thanksgiving, not just one time a year, not just a month of the year, but every single day. We got to live like it's Thanksgiving every single day, without all the gluttony and watching the Lions play. But some of you guys didn't catch that. All right. We gotta live like it's Thanksgiving every day. And gratitude is the antidote to our complaining. Gratitude is that antidote that we need to stop complaining. So I really believe that complaining steals our joy. And complaining sets the tone for the rest of the day, if not the rest of the week. If you woke up this morning with a bad attitude, if you woke up, somebody woke you up early. I know you're on vacations this week, and your mama had to go somewhere, and they woke you up early, and you woke with a bad attitude, the rest of your day is gonna follow. If you start your day with complaining, you'll end your day with complaining. Complaining always sets the tone for the rest of your day. And a lot of you guys are here with that tempo right there, that tone. So we got to be thankful. And the Bible has a lot to teach us about this subject. In fact, the Israelites, who were God's chosen people, God's favorite people, were huge complainers. How can God love these people so much and all they do is complain? They were huge complainers. When you read the Old Testament and see the things they said and did, you will realize that they were annoying. I mean, you're like, really? You guys are going to cry about that? You guys are going to complain about that? But they complained about a lot of things. And again, these were God's favorite people. And this was the lineage that would lead to Jesus. And yet over and over again, we see that they were complainers. Any complainers in the house? No, raise your hand. Hopefully that's not you. If you are a complainer, you're in good hands because look at the people of Jesus. So you're also going to see as we talk about this, how we can relate to this. So let me give you some backstory. Joseph was the son of Jacob, and he was hated by his brothers. This is this story in the Old Testament. He was hated by his brothers because his father loved him more than the other brothers. And one day they come up with this plan. They instead of killing him, they decide to sell him into slavery. And he goes into Egypt, and God blesses him. What was meant to be a curse, God was with him and blessed him. He became the head of the house of one of Pharaoh's confidants, and then he became the governor, second to Pharaoh, and God continued to bless him in all of that. So his brothers find out, there's this famine going on, and his brothers find out that there's a lot of food in Egypt. They come, they realize it's his brother Joseph. Joseph doesn't kill them. Instead, he asks them to come, and they come and live, his brothers, his father, and all his family, they come and they live in Egypt for hundreds of years. Now, what happened after some time, Joseph died, his brothers died, and the new Pharaoh comes in, and he realizes, wait a minute, this Israelite people, they're growing by a lot of numbers. They're multiplying by a lot of numbers, and he was fearful of them so much that he made them slaves. So they start working as slaves until Moses shows up into the scene. And Moses, who eventually led them out of Egypt and into the wilderness, and this is where the complaining starts. The Bible tells us in Exodus chapter 5, verses 1 through 22, we're not going to read that, I'm going to save you some time, that they complained that they were being rescued from slavery. Because Pharaoh said, oh, you want to take them out of Egypt? I'm going to make them work even harder. I'm going to double their quota. And I'm going to make them do more bricks and mortar. And I'm going to do more. And so they got upset at Moses. You're trying to take us from this place, but look what you have caused. They began to complain. Eventually, through many plagues, Moses is able to take them out from slavery into the wilderness. And that's really when the complaining was taken to a whole new level. In Exodus chapter 15, verses 22 and 23, they start complaining about the taste of the water. It's too bitter, all right? They wanted water. Now they got to the water, and it's too bitter. And then Exodus 16, 1 through 4, they didn't like the bread Moses gave them in the desert. Exodus 17, 1 through 4, they complained that they were thirsty again. In Exodus 32, 28, they got impatient, waiting for the 10 Commandments, and complained, and instead built a golden calf, an idol to worship, because Moses took too long, and so we're not going to just wait around, and so we might as well build something that we can worship. And then in Numbers 11:33, they complained about the food again, and then they complained about Moses' leadership, and then they complained because they were afraid when it was time to go into the promised land. They complained about that. Then the Israelites didn't like Moses and wanted to kill him. Then they were rebelling against Moses, who got appointed to lead them, and remember, he saved them from slavery. And then in Numbers 21 through 5, they complained about the water again. Over and over and over again. I just wanted to give you these quick verses. All of this is in the Bible. You can read it for yourself. But a total of 14 times it's recorded that they complained. 14 times they complained about their trip to the promised land. God was trying to free them from their slavery, from the place they were at, to take them to a better land where they would be free. And all they could do along the way was complain about everything that God was doing. Can I tell you that sounds oddly familiar? Because God is trying to take you somewhere. And man, all the thing we do along the way is complain. Are we there yet? Can we stop, God? I don't like these chips. I don't like this. He's being annoying to me. He's saying bad things to me. Or he's pulling my hair. And you're complaining and complaining on a 3-hour trip. You're complaining. And God, I feel like God would say, you better get your act straight, or I'm turning this car around. We're not going to wherever we're going. And you know what? That's kind of what happened. Because this trip that should have taken 11 days took 40 years. This trip that should have taken 11 days to get to where they were going, to where God was taking them, it took them 40 years. You know why? Because God said, you're not ready. You're not ready for where I'm taking you. So this short trip of 11 days ended up going in circles for 40 years. Can I tell you that some of you guys are not where you're supposed to be? And it's not because you don't have the talent. And it's not because, you don't pray enough. It's because you're complaining about the place where you're at. You're complaining instead of seeing the good. There's a rule called the 20-80 rule. There might be 80% of the things in your life are going right, and 20% of the things might be going wrong, but you don't focus on the 80, you focus on the 20. You focus on the 20%. Everything else is going right. I mean, you have health. Your family has health. You have a job. All of these things, you have this, but you don't have those shoes. Man, I don't have those shoes. I don't have that $180 shirt, whatever it is that you want. You don't have that, but everything else is wrong. And this applies into everything. In every area of our life, we look at the 20 instead of looking at the 80%. Because if we're really real about it, kind of like this video, there's so many things to be thankful for. There's so many things to be grateful for. There's so many things to say thank you, God. In the midst of whatever is going wrong, there's so much more that is going right. The Israelites complained 14 times, and every time God came through. If you've ever been around someone so negative that always complains, you know what that feels like. It's draining. It's draining. Being around somebody so negative that complains about everything is just draining. My first point is complaining is draining. It's draining. There's some psychological research that suggests that making a habit of complaining can actually rewire your brain so that type of thinking becomes ingrained in your mind. This means that your brain becomes accustomed to complaining, so you do it more and more and more. The more you complain, the more it ingrained is in your mind, so the more you complain. And the more you complain, the more that you complain. And that's why negative people or complainers always complain. You can't get a positive thing out of them because they're always looking at the 20%, not the 80%. They're looking at the cup half empty. In the same study, researchers tracked people's moods before and after hearing a complaint. And as predicted, listening to others complaining made people feel worse. When you're around people that are always complaining, your mood goes down. I mean, you just become so negative about yourself. And it almost gets you to complain about things yourself. That's why it's important to be careful who your friends are. Because if they're complaining, eventually you'll start complaining. If they're negative people, you'll start being a negative person. So it is so draining to be around people that often complain. Philippians chapter 4, verse 14 through 16 tells us this: do everything without complaining. Oof. I know for some of us it's a little bit hard to do everything without complaining and arguing. Whatever it is, do it without complaining and arguing. Verse 15 says, so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights. How can we shine like bright lights when we're always complaining? How can we be a light that cannot be hidden when we're always complaining? So the Bible's telling us, be like shining bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. Hold firmly to the word of life, that on the day of Christ's return, I will be proud that I did not run the race in vain and that my work was not useless. So what are the things that you complain the most about? Personally speaking to you, young people that are here, what are the things that you complain the most about? How are you training yourselves and others by griping and whining? Even if it's just in your head and not out loud. Like, what are some of those things in your life that you're constantly complaining about? Here's a list of the top 10 things that young people complain about. Number 10, chores. Surprise, surprise. How many of you guys got chores? How many young people have chores? Like, be real. How many of you guys, man, the rest of you guys are lucky. You guys got no chores. But when you have chores, you began to complain about, because, man, I don't like to clean my room. I don't like to throw the trash. I don't like to wash the dishes. Or it's not my turn, it's my brother's turn, or it's my sister's turn, or, whatever it is. That's number 10. Number 9, a curfew. How many guys hate bedtime or having to be, in bed by a certain time? Number 8, waking up early. You complain about waking up early. You hate it. I mean, you just hate waking up early, even when you go to school. Number 7, waking up early on a Mondays. I mean, here it is. You just went through Saturday, and then you went to church on Sunday, had a good day. But, oh my God, I got to wake up early tomorrow. It's Monday. Number 6. This is the 6th most embarrassing thing for young people. Parents embarrassing them. We don't do that. Parents embarrassing them. They complain about that, parents, just FYI. Number 5, missing out. When you can't go with your friends, when you can't be there with your friends, missing out. Number 4, comparison. You compare yourself to others and the complaining begins. Number 3, an annoying brother or sister. You complain? Anybody complains about their brother or sister? That's number 3. All right, here are the last 2. The last 2 are big. The weather. It's either too hot, it's too cold, and you complain about it all day, right? All day. I didn't bring a sweater, or I didn't, whatever. The number 1 thing that young people complain about is slow Wi-Fi. Slow Wi-Fi. Yeah. First world problems right here. First world problems. For the adults in the house, though, it's similar, but in a bigger scale. We complain about our job. We complain about our home. We complain about our car. We complain about our neighbors. We complain about our coworkers. We complain about family members. We complain about things in a larger scale. Yet there's still complaints. We complain about how bad we have it in comparison to other people. But the heart is still the same. The heart is a heart that's not satisfied with what God is doing in our life. The thing that I want you to understand from this is it's not the things, it's the heart. It's the heart. We're saying, God, you don't have it together in my life. I wish you did this and I would be better off for it. But can I tell you that God knows exactly what you need for the season in your life that you're in? He cannot give you any more because you're not there yet. Just like the Israelites, did not take them 11 days, but 40 years, because he knew they weren't ready to get there. God knows what you need for the season or the time that you are in. One of the things that we do get to choose is our attitude. How you look at things. See, bad things will happen to us. We are going to get blasted by a crashing wave at some point or another, and we can't control it, but we can choose the attitude in which we'll respond to it. We can choose what we're going to do. Because complaining does not fix the situation. It only makes it worse. It doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. I'm encouraged with some of the stories that sometimes I hear as a youth pastor. I get to talk to a lot of you guys, and I'm encouraged by some of you guys. I know AB's here in the house somewhere. And I just want to highlight him here because AB went through a couple of surgeries on his knee, You guys know him. He plays basketball. He plays football. He's an athlete. He loves that. And he had some injuries on his knee. And this whole year, and I think part of last year, he wasn't able to play the sports that he loved. And he'd come in here with his knee brace and sometimes with his crutches. And I'd go up to him and say, "Hey, B, how you doing? How's your knee doing?" And he'd always respond the same way. "God is always good, Pastor. God's always going to see me through." Always so positive about that. And, you know, he could have looked at the 20% and said, "Look at my knee. I'm missing out on everything." But he chose to look at the 80, knowing that God will eventually heal his knee and that he'd come back stronger and he'd come back ready to hit those sports and that God was going to be with him. Can I tell you that even in this time, AB, God used this time to work something in your life and in your heart? And perhaps there would have been no other way but this season and this moment in time for God to do that in your life. See, sometimes God will allow things to happen to us so that he can meet us, so that he can do something that otherwise, because sometimes pain is the vehicle to our victory. Sometimes pain is the vehicle to the anointing that God wants to pour out over our lives. So let's stop complaining. It's draining you of all the great things that God wants to do in you and through you. And we're going to finish up with this point number 2. Complaining will get you stuck. When the people of God got to the desert, they complained and wished they were back in Egypt as slaves. They told Moses, "Why'd you bring us out here? We'd rather be back in Egypt as slaves." See, the hard times made them forget their destination, and instead they wanted to go back to what used to be. God was trying to get them to go forward, but their complaining minds was sending them backwards. Can I tell you that our complaining sometimes, that's the effect that it has? Instead of moving us forward, it sends us backwards. It sends us backwards, and that's what was happening. Exodus chapter 14, verse 11 and 12 says, "And they said to Moses, 'Why did you bring us out of here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves.'" Check this out. They were saying, "Leave us alone. Let us just be slaves the rest of our lives. It's better to be a slave in Egypt," and they thought, "than to be a corpse in the wilderness." Their mind was so engraved in the 20% that they couldn't think of the 80%. They couldn't think of what God can do in their life. Their complaining, their grumbling got them stuck in the desert for those 40 years. God had a plan for them that would have taken only 11 days, but they complained and fought God's plan. And some of you have not moved, have not grown, have not matured because you are stuck in your complaining. You're much like this vehicle right here. Can we put that quick video here? I mean, you're trying to move forward, you're stuck in this mud, and you're just there. And you try to go backwards, and then you try to go forward, and it just doesn't work because you keep complaining. You're stuck. You're in a hole. You're full of mud and you can't get out there. And complaining is not going to do it. The only thing that will do it is gratitude. Gratitude will get you out of the hole and into where you need to go. But some of us are stuck in that hole and we keep doing the same thing over and over, going backwards, going forward. And you never get out of that hole. You're stuck. It's your complaining. I remember when I was at the PD, I used to work there, and I got to a point that I was just like, I don't know why God has me here. I didn't like my job at that point. I hated waking up early. I complained about that. I hated clocking in. I hated talking to the people that would call in. You know, I hated that they yelled at me. I didn't like it. I just didn't like the job until one day God spoke to me. You have the wrong perspective. You think that you are here to get a paycheck at the end of the week. you are here as my representative. I'm telling you, that changed my world. All this time, I thought I was there to get a paycheck. And because I didn't like the job, I would put up with it for the paycheck. But I realized I wasn't there for a paycheck. God had placed me there as His representative, as His voice, to speak on His behalf. So when people needed help there, guess who was there? I was there. And when I understood that, that changed my heart, that changed my mind. And I started seeing people the way God saw people. I started seeing them through the eyes that God saw them. I didn't see people that way. I started seeing them through His heart. And all of a sudden, I loved people. All of a sudden, I cared for people. All of a sudden, I wanted to help them. And what is your problem? How can I pray for you? How can I love on you? Everything changed because I knew I was representing Him. Can I tell you that you are God's representatives wherever you go? You might hate where you're going. You might hate your class. You might hate your school. You might hate your teachers. You might hate everything about it. But you're seeing it from the wrong perspective. You are God's representative. And God placed you in that classroom, and God placed you in that school, and God placed you in that job, and God placed you in that family so that you could represent God and speak on His behalf. When those people pray, guess who God will use? He'll use you. You are, we've said it before, you're the answer to someone else's prayer. Because God will use you to answer their prayer. Psalms 103 verses 2 through 5 says, "Let all that I am praise the Lord. May I never forget the good things He does for me. He forgives all my sins and heals all my diseases. He redeems me from death and crowns me with love and tender mercies. He fills my love with good things. My youth is renewed like the eagles." Can we live a life full of gratitude? Always praising God. Always praising God. I want you to stand. I want to finish up with this story. There's this book called 1,000 Gifts. 1,000 Gifts. And it's by Ann Voskamp. And Ann Voskamp was a stay-at-home mom. She had 3 children. And they were about 2.5 years apart. So she was at home for like 8 years taking care of her children. And in her mundane routine of taking care of the children, cooking and cleaning, doing laundry, those kinds of things, she got to the place where she was complaining. She was frustrated. She was tired of the same routine over and over. And God began to speak to her and says, all the things around you are gifts that I give you. They're gifts. So what she did, she started to keep a list of the gifts that God had given her. It was simple things like the cardinals landing on her bird feeder, the smell of her favorite candle burning, or a friend calling her out of the blue. She started her day every day with thinking of the gifts that she took for granted that would happen, and she would write them down. And when she got to 1,000 things, 1,000 gifts, she wrote this book about all her experiences through that. And she's onto something that is super biblical, because life as a gift makes us grateful. Even when things are less than perfect, God is both the giver of good things, of good gifts, and He is the gift Himself. The Bible tells us in James 1:17 that whatever is good, whatever is perfect is a gift coming down to us from God our Father, who created all the lights in the heavens. He never changes or casts a shifting shadow. Everything good is a gift from God to you. Everything that you have is God's gift to you. The fact that you are breathing today is God's gift to you. The fact that you are standing on your 2 feet is a gift from God to you. The fact that you are here is a gift from God to you. The fact that your family's good. The fact that you're having Thanksgiving tomorrow and being with your family, that's a gift from God. All of these things are gifts from God. So I want to challenge you. I know some of you guys did the 7-day challenge, 7 days of gratitude challenge. And a lot of you guys posted on social media the things that you are thankful for. And I want you to take it further. And you don't have to post them if you don't want, but I do want you to start a list on your own. They're on your phone, on whatever app you want to do it on. I want you to write down the gifts that God has given you. And maybe one day you'll reach 1,000. But I want you to start every morning and thinking about the things. As simple as, God, thank you for giving me life. Thank you for giving me my annoying little brother. But you gave me my brother. Thank you for, giving me this or that. Start writing them down. When you start thinking of the things that you have, you'll have no time for complaining. When you start seeing the 80%, the 20 is too small to complain about. Because the 80 is greater than the 20. So start looking at all the things, all the gifts that God gives you, and that squashes all the complaining that you may have. Come on, how many of you guys are going to take that challenge? How many of you guys are going to do that with me? So I want us to do something today. We're just going to thank God. We're just going to thank God. Thank God. Maybe you already have things in your mind that you want to say thank you. Maybe it's been an entire year since you've said thank you to God about some things. This is the night. This is the night you do it and you show gratitude to God. And we're just going to thank God. I want to end on a big note today. I want us to just show our joy to God for all the things that He's done. So I'm going to invite you to come up here, young people, and we're going to thank God. We're going to just say thank you for all that He's done in our lives. Before we go into the day of Thanksgiving, like Isaac said, let's do it tonight. Let's just say thank you to God for all that He's done. Come on, let's go. Let's thank God.